Hello, and welcome everyone to an episode of Hack and Tell. We're back to say hello to Phil Mataras, one of the founders in the ecosystem, who's been with us for a long time at this point. Phil and I, shared some Discord conversations, what must have been 7 years ago now, in the Arweave testnet period. And then obviously later you went on to found Rdrive, and following that, Ario, the gateway network on top of Arweave. And you were coming through the office here in New York over the last couple of days. And so we figured we'd sit down, record an interesting conversation for everyone and show everyone what you've been building.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, to showing some people what we're up to at RIO. It's always a pleasure to come hang out with you guys at the office. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay. Well, maybe you could start by taking everyone through, what have you actually created over the last few years? Yeah. Should we run through it?
Yeah. I'm founder of the RIO network. Well, what is RIO really? We like to say it's a decentralized network of gateways that sit on top of Arweave. What does that really mean? It's kind of like the access layer into Arweave. Figure if Arweave is a permanent hard drive with the incentives to store and replicate data for really long periods of time, we're a layer above that where users can leverage a gateway to upload data to Arweave, download it through the fast caches that the gateways offer, query for that data through an index that the gateway also manages, and then of course view any of the sites, pages, or apps that might exist on Arweave. As you mentioned, we started with Rdrive, because I really wanted just an easy to use app. I was tired of explaining real technical things to people, and Rdrive is Web3 Dropbox on permanent storage steroids, right? We saw the opportunity to then work on the infrastructure piece. And as we were building that, we actually saw other opportunities at the gateway level to introduce things like the Arweave name system. Because as we were building things on Arweave, we're sharing these links to different Arweave transactions. And as you might know, you go to arweave.net/NID, it's not very friendly. If people don't know what Arweave is, they might see that link and be like, this might be spam or something malicious. I think I was sharing something on LinkedIn at the time. So you figure people are wary for those who are like, hey, wait, maybe these gateways can also resolve these kinds of IDs to friendly names. So that's maybe one of the first new utilities that we've kind of built into the RIO network on top of, those other services that you might expect from a gateway, like the cache, index, and query. So we started with Rdrive, and while it is meant for anyone to just pick up and use and store anything on Arweave, we started to put in some really cool tools to help you get an RNS name, publish your apps, right? Because you can do more with Arweave than just store a file. So maybe we can just show that now. I could show how easy it is to just get a wallet, upload something, explore it a bit, see some of the information behind that that file. And maybe give it a friendly name and show how you can now access it on any of the gateways in the RIO network. And I'm sure we could talk about some cool things along the way.
Sounds good. Bonus points. Can we make it like a PumWeb app? Can this be something we can load up in a browser and it looks like a web page, but actually it's available across this whole decentralized network of gateways?
So absolutely. And I think maybe what we could try to do, so I'm trying to come up with a good template to maybe show for these demos, but in the absence of that, maybe we just go to ChatGPT and just ask it to make a simple HTML page. And pretty sure we should have some decent results.
That sounds good. ChatGPT will code for us.
Okay. So I guess everyone should be able to see my screen. Let's first, let's, I guess, log into Rdrive for the first time and just go through the process of getting our first wallet in Arweave. Now, it's important to understand why wallets are necessary here. Any piece of data that you upload to Arweave is cryptographically signed by you, the user, right? In the case of Rdrive, we were pretty passionate about the user having full access and taking full custody of their key or their identity in this case. So here I'm gonna get to Rdrive. I'm gonna click sign up. I'm gonna pretend like I'm a new user. I am going to just create a new wallet. And now this is gonna generate a wallet in the background. And again, this is important because Arweave and the perm web is different than the normal web. any piece of data that you upload is not just signed, but there's a timestamp of that piece of data. So it gives you a clean record of who uploaded it and when, which I think is different than other systems where you might just have a content address without any actual timestamp or provenance to who created that.
Yeah, this is one of the fundamental decisions we made when building the protocol, was that we really don't want content identifiers, because content on its own doesn't tell you anything. Actually, who said the content, who made the content, at what point in time, and other metadata on top of that is really like, it's a fundamental part of the information. You can't ingest the information usefully without that other information as well. And so we made it instead an identifier of the whole of that bundle altogether in one. And yeah, and so here we just made this wallet.
So I just created a wallet. Again, we wanted our drive to be really secure. I'm going to give it a simple password here. So we're going to see some tutorial. I'm obviously very familiar with our drive. I'm going to skip past this. Going to get my wallet. So here I could copy the key file. I'm actually not even going to show it. No reason. We're just doing a test here. I am going to download it though, so I can put it in RConnect later. RConnect is the most popular browser extension wallet you can use in the Arweave ecosystem. So highly recommend, if you really wanted to explore, to get RConnect first.
And it just said top up with credit card there. I think that's going to be confusing for people outside the Arweave ecosystem. How does that work in a decentralized way?
Yeah, so great question. Topping up with the credit card does not work in a decentralized way, right? So this was something that was important for us to add for our drive, and something that we got a lot of feedback about in general was, I know Arweave has been around for 7 years now, but in some cases it's still hard to get Arweave tokens.
Right.
People may not be familiar with going to an exchange or doing a swap to get those. So what we had built was something that we call Turbo, which is a way to, let's accept our cookies here, a way to purchase storage credits to pay for your uploads. The cool thing is you can just pay with a credit card. So yeah, that's centralized because that's, you're paying permanent data solutions via, we use Stripe as our payment provider. But the neat thing is Turbo is actually integrated with some different apps. So you can use these credits in like Helix, or you can use the Turbo CLI or SDK, or some of the other ones that leverage the bundling standards that Turbo follows. So I'm buying the credits here through our drive, but you can use them in different places.
Yeah, exactly. So the payment processing itself, that little cog is centralized, but it can be swapped, right? We have these bundling services, and so you can at least pay the network directly if you want to without using this.
Exactly.
Yeah, and your identity is detached from your payments. So you keep that key even if you're using your credit card. You get like the upsides of Web3, asterisk one important point, but the upsides of Web3, without the downsides of actually having to get access to tokens, which can be quite annoying and require KYC or even AML, depending on where you are. And that only like caveat is, well, you have to trust that PDS is not going to run off with your $10.
Yeah.
But you don't need double spend protection on that. That's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this is how our drive does the top up. You could, for example, use our SDK and you could top up in Solana and just pay just the amount that you're uploading. So then you don't even really need to trust PDS with a balance that, maybe we run away with or something, but like you're really paying as you go. So that's also pretty neat.
Yeah. And there's been some work in the ecosystem recently, actually. Ario, you guys were a big part of this, I think, to try and standardize around the top-up endpoints that are used when you have a bundler. So anyone can implement a bundler. There's a few different implementations out there at the moment in the network. And the idea is that, well, if everybody just puts whatever way you top up for that particular node at a specific HTTP endpoint, like a web address, then you have an app like our drive, and you can just say, okay, the person is out of credits. Like this is a standardized API, and then we can just fill in whatever way they're supposed to top up with that particular bundler, so that the whole thing becomes the application is agnostic. The implementation underneath can be friendly to the local rules of wherever the user is found.
Exactly. And we started to explore that a little bit with our drive. We introduced a gateway switcher, so you can point it at different
Cool.
gateways. Um, the other cool thing to highlight, maybe to announce small updates. So, we're going to get into gateways and some of the more details that, but now we did just introduce the ability for gateways to advertise if they're running a bundler in the gateway address registry. So soon enough, you'll be able to easily see, well, which gateways are online and available, which ones are running this bundling service that you'd be able to utilize.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
so,
amazing.
so making progress there.
And does it at the moment? So one of the things I think could be interesting about this, like this whole series of videos we're thinking about putting together, is to actually study the stuff that is not quite perfect yet, things that we're still trying to work on as an ecosystem. So it's okay if the answer is no, but I'm curious. At the moment, the way that the UI works, is it picking up the bundler from the gateway? So if we point to a different gateway and there's a bundler on that gateway, is it going to automatically switch or not?
No, not yet. And what maybe another example of how we're exploring this. Again, I know we're switching around a bit, but we decided, at least for now, to be more discreet with what you can use, which gateway services you want to use. So, for example, in the RNS app, this is maybe another thing that we can explore here. Let's just log in. So this is the application that we use for finding names in the Arweave name system. And similar to, oh no, where are the settings? Okay, well, I guess I'm not looking at the latest version here. Maybe, hold on, guys. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. So this is another, example of how we were looking at making apps more configurable to leverage different gateways and services. So again, for here, it's like, okay, we've broken out the gateway between the coup URL, mu, SU address. Likewise in our drive, if we look at our gateway switcher here, switch gateway, this is loading all of the gateways in the gateway address registry. And so here we can actually see, I think there's 200 plus gateways that exist. You could search for one. I could say, all right, permagate. All right, is it active? Yes. Close. So what is this? What did I just do? All right. So to your question, did I switch the bundler? It did not just switch the bundler or anything like that. It did not, pretty sure, it did not switch which GraphQL index it's using. However, and this is maybe a bad example because I have no data here. If I were to start pulling any data, looking at my permaweb apps or sites, that would now go through Permagate.io, which is one of the gateways on the RIO network.
Right. And maybe that's something that's worth explaining to everyone as well, is that I think the way that ARNS is handling decentralization of access is as far as I can tell, is the best offering in crypto right now for these types of networks. And the reason for that is because if you know a gateway URL, its domain name specifically, in the centralized web, you can access any ARNS name as a subname inside that.
You got it.
And this means that, okay, so I happen to know that arweave.net is a gateway. You're on ar.io here, but I know that I can go take that address, rdrive.dog, and I can put that into, new tab, thank you. A new tab, we can go to rdrive on arweave.net as well as like 200 other gateways. And so as long as the user is aware that those names are portable, then they can essentially swap between them as they like and use the ones that they prefer. And this is real decentralization of access without having to modify the browsers, which is the only other route realistically, and that's just going to take a decade. We don't have that long. So
yeah, it's using standard HTTP, standard DNS.
Yeah.
And yeah, modifying the browser it's a long road. And luckily we've also, talking about experiments, things not quite ready yet. We have been exploring adding things like we've been branding, the Wayfinder protocol, AR:// putting that in browser extensions to make it easy, so you don't even need to know which domain you want to. Oops, did I put it right? Yeah, there we go. See, that's why you want better integration with the browser, because Google tries to like override whatever you put in there. But you see here, I put an AR:// and it's using our little extension here, which has all the gateways, and it's picking a gateway based off of, let's see, what routing I think I'm using. Yeah. So random top 5 state gateway it's routing me to.
Okay, nice.
So it's, again, showing how as a user, I don't even need to care about the domain. I just need to know what my name is. I want to access our drive. And then again, now you can dig a little bit deeper. And this is where I think it's cool. Like you really see like what the benefits of the permaweb are. So let me just refresh this page just so I can see the network. So let's just scroll up to the top here. So now again, your average user never going to do or care about this, but you can look under the covers now of this permaweb app, right? Because our drive is a permaweb app itself. So here we can scroll down, we can see X RNS resolved ID. So this is the Arweave transaction ID that's being loaded from this AO process, right? Because each Arweave name has its own ANT, Arweave name token, which is a process on AO. But we can get this RNS resolved ID. We can go to a block explorer like view block, as long as it thinks I'm a human.
Go to one of the permaweb resident block explorers.
Oh, it doesn't do that.
No. I'll go through the gateway. So
come on, view block. Okay, right. So again, now we're showing how, it's saying gateway error because it can't render the page, but we're seeing the details, the provenance information, right? Maybe this isn't a great example because we only have a couple tags, but you figure any piece of data can also have a rich set of metadata tags. But here's the default ones, right? That timestamp we were talking about, the content type, it's an Arweave manifest. That's a special content type that makes all of these apps pages all actually render. And yeah, when we uploaded it and who, right? So I could see that it's from SDI, which is, let's click on this item. So this is actually the wallet we use that's connected with our GitHub that's updating any copy of the R Drive app. So we're using permaweb deploy to do that. So you have that record of provenance for everything here. And then again, there's more you can do with seeing different versions of the app through time, right? So if you're a user, maybe the app just got nerfed or the developers changed something on it and you wanted to go back to the old version. It's super easy when basically every historical version of the app is there forever.
Right, precisely. And this is like you mentioned a second ago, well, the user's never going to see this. Well, it's like the user will never see it until the day that it breaks, and then they need it, and it's there for them. Yeah. And that, I think, is like the whole point of all of this endeavor, is that eventually when that day comes that some sort of fault happens or a promise is broken in the rendering of a service in cyberspace, then you have guaranteed rights by the availability of the data, essentially. Yeah, and it's pretty powerful.
And you can see it just works, right? So again, I could take this transaction ID and go to, a gateway and look at stuff via the ID, but who wants to share this kind of link, right? That's the whole reason why we have that name system. So maybe we can come back to our drive. So again, one thing to point out, Arweave, public by default, right? To get information to be spread around the world in the most open manner, it's public blockchain, right? Our drive, we do offer the ability to have private information that's encrypted. We're not going to mess with that right now. I think could be another maybe tech talk around privacy and encryption on Arweave and AO. Probably, especially the FAG stuff. I feel like I can learn things from that.
Yeah.
Let's click on new drive, and let's just make a public drive, and we're going to call it demo app public drive. Okay, so it creates a drive for us. Now let's
your on-chain
space. That's this. That'll be a separate dev and tell. Or debate that. So now it's like, okay, well, what can I upload? Let's go to our friend ChatGPT. Let's hide my other chats. There's some alpha in there. Let's say make me a 80s themed link tree page. I want it to be a single HTML page and support links to my Twitter, my email, my LinkedIn profile, and I don't know what else should we put on them.
Can it have what's the thing, carousel like effect where the thing cycles at the top?
And can you put those links in a carousel so it cycles at the top? We'll see what it comes up with. Again, it must be a single HTML page. So this is not to say you cannot do React apps or HTML with CSS, all that stuff, right? We're just doing a simple demo here. Let's do a single HTML page. Okay.
Boolean.
So, for my opinion, well, ChatGPT, I'm sure we all watch ChatGPT load code, but I feel like this is, for my use case, hands down the best thing that I can do with ChatGPT, or the most impactful things I feel like I've gotten out of it. Doing these really fast prototypes of just quick, like, I need this thing, make a page, or the Wayfinder extension, right? That was a ChatGPT thing. I experimented with, it was actually a really easy experiment, putting any permaweb app into Telegram mini apps, right? Another like, ChatGPT, help me do this, like, just really rapid experimentation like this. It's pretty good. So highly recommend anyone, if you're doing a quick thing, I have this idea, can it work? I bet ChatGPT can make it work in a few hours if you're persistent with your prompts.
Something along that same vein as the Telegram apps that people in the ecosystem are experimenting with is this idea of having the message specification for different AO processes expressed on the info endpoint, if you will, of a process in a standardized way, so that AI can basically read standard and be like, okay, I know how to use this process. I don't even need the UI. And I go straight to it and just integrate with it and use it.
Yeah, so it can kind of discover what the process does.
Exactly. Yeah.
We started exploring that. I think like now our info handler returns all the handlers of the process, but like still can it return all of its code too? Like really all the details.
Like what action handlers do you have? What different parameters, like arguments they're basically expecting? Tags.
So let's see. All right. So we got some HTML. I'll go to Mataras. Yeah. My email, if anyone wants to hit me up, it's Phil at
Bold.
I get all tons of spam already. I think LinkedIn. I forget what my LinkedIn is. Philip Mataras. I don't know. I have to forgive me if some of these links don't work, but let's see. Now let's just double click on this. Let's just see what it looks like in Chrome. All right, my 80s link tree.
Oh, wow.
Did you see that, Sam?
Oh, very nice. I mean, it's not quite what I was thinking, but it's pretty good. Okay, we'll take it.
We'll take it. All right, so let's just close that. Let's go to our logged in R drive here. So we're going to upload a file. And we're going to go to desktop. And Volanarios' homepage. So again, to point out before, Sam, we looked at how to top up with a credit card. When we first built our drive, obviously there's no credit card. There wasn't even a bundling standard when we first had our drive. So you do not even need a bundler with our drive. You are your own bundler when you're our drive. So literally, if you have 1,000 files, you don't need to send it to a bundler because our drive can make what we call a direct to network bundle. It packages them up and just sends them to the network, and you spend your AR tokens as gas.
Right. Didn't you guys have an implementation of ANS 102?
We did.
Yeah. For the original.
I think that was like November, December of 20. When we first started, I feel like that came out. And I think we implemented it for like a couple of weeks, and like, this is a little
janky.
A little janky.
It was a bit janky.
So there's probably some ANS 102 R drive data out there for sure. I know I have some of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do too.
You're an OG if you've uploaded with ANS 102.
Right. But that's an interesting point, because those are going to have to be, decodable permanently. We have the libraries on the firmware, fortunately.
In the
And
gateway, it still indexes.
just JSON. So it's easy, but that's an interesting point for people building apps in general. It's like you have to make sure that your data is in an understandable format, or you at least have the format reasonably well documented on the firmware itself so that it can be found along with the data. Otherwise, people have to basically reverse engineer how to see your data.
Right.
Not just
really
bytes.
difficult and not a very long-standing type of pattern, right?
Yeah, right.
We talk about this a lot, right? But I feel like when you're building on the firmware, you really got to think long-term, not making all these little changes that aren't backward compatible or anything like that.
Thinking protocols, basically. You're always building something that other people might speak to in one form or another in the future. And the more solidified and clarified you can make that standard, the better it'll be for everyone.
Okay, so luckily in this case, this is a really small file. So one of the things we've had going on for a while now with Turbo is any files that are really tiny, under 100 kilobytes are free. Easy way for people to mess around like this. You see here, maybe we can just highlight this. What we've also added in our drive is the ability to add a license. In this case, I'm just going to add a UDL license, Universal Data License, which is, I guess, a unique license standard that's kind of built for the permaweb specifically, right?
Yeah, we built it as a meat space enforceable programmable license for people uploading data to the permaweb. So you can just quickly add a few of those metadata tags and specify, hey, my license, the royalties should be enforceable like this or like that, without having to write your own license from scratch. And also so that the license tags are indexable. So you can find data that abides by the license type that you're interested in. So you can say, well, I want all the content that is free to view, for example, or less than this much to let a user view.
Yeah. So we also implemented Creative Commons, but I'll stick with the UDL. I'll configure it. So I don't know, license fee. This is a demo. Currency, AR, commercial use, allowed. Derivations.
With credit?
With credit, I guess. Yeah. Okay, next. All right, so you can see there that's adding my license, and we're going to hit upload. Okay, I'm getting rid of that little feedback thing, syncing. Okay, here's our homepage. So let us see if we can preview it.
Go right. Nice.
So instantly available, right? Ugly link, though. Ugly URL. What can we do about that? Well, here's where the already named system comes into play. So first, let's flip over to the RNS app. So again, we were talking about this before. What is the Arweave name system? It's a way to buy a friendly name for any piece of data on Arweave, as well as your identity, right? Figure a domain name. Sure, it's a place for your website, but it's your email address. It's like your identity. So it's really both. And not to add more things on top of that, but it's a friendly name for an AO process.
I was just about to,
So it's
exactly.
we're thinking about when you look at name resolution, you have a few different kinds, forward and reverse. So it's like forward resolution is a friendly name to a piece of data, a friendly name to an identity, friendly name to an AO process.
Right.
Reverse resolution is going the other way.
Exactly. Yeah.
So really trying to support all these use cases in different things, right? Because it is a friendly name for a lot of stuff. Pretty unique.
Right. And it's kind of a case of, it's almost like when you give an AO process a name, particularly if it's your personal process and you're using something like AOS as a developer and the upcoming visual versions of that for end users. It's like you're naming your personal computer, basically. It's somewhere out there. You kind of refer to it in the same way that you would use a domain name to refer to a website, but it's not a website. It's like your laptop. You should be able to just log in by saying, AOS Sam,
Anything.
Phil, at some point, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And again, maybe you're leaking a little alpha here, but we're, looking to add more functionality onto it, specifically the ability to set which one of your names is your primary name. So that's the one piece that is missing, right? So you figure I've logged in to the Arweave name system app here. I can go to manage assets. This is my test wallet, right? This is We Will Rock You, right? It's not some other word. But you see here I have a few names. Let's say this app or a social app or R Drive wanted to take my wallet address and show one of my friendly names instead of the ugly address. How does it know which one
to use? Right.
So you can look for a new feature to come out soon to address that. But maybe what we'll do here is let's actually get a new name. So first, to buy a friendly name, you're going to need IO tokens. Specifically in this case, test IO tokens, because the RIO network has been in testnet for a while now. But if a few tokens lets you get a name. I think you can go up to 48 characters maybe, or 50 characters. So what I'm going to do first is just actually take a new wallet I made, and I'm going to go to RConnect, and all right, I have my test wallet here. I think my test wallet should have some test tokens. So again, one of the things you could do with RConnect, I have another name already called Molinarios. All right, so this is showing how, again, forward lookup of a name to an address, right? So come on, RConnect, do your thing, please, yay. So see, it mapped Molinarios to NDZ, blah, 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 which is my wallet address. I'm not actually going to send any tokens to that wallet. I am just going to send to the new one that I made. So I'm just adding the wallet that I just created with R Drive. Again, because the RNS app doesn't allow you to log in with a JSON file directly. That's why I'm putting it into RConnect, which really, it's a lot more secure to use a web extension versus direct JSON. So
Right.
Sure, a little more friction, but, oops, we need to export. We just need to save. Save. Okay. Now we can come back here. Now we can do connect via RConnect, demo wallet.
You have a lot of wallets now.
I have you on the scene. When you're in an ecosystem for 7 years, you end up with a lot of wallets. Okay, so we should see, all right, I have a TO balance, 1K. Gotta love how AO is very fast. All right, so yeah, okay. Right, and so that's fluctuating. One of the things we actually did build in, it was important for us to make sure the prices reflected the market demand.
Right.
So instead of just fixing the prices, instead of making some kind of oracle or giving someone control to fix prices, which could be, might be, an option for some people or some name systems, where you wanted to make it a protocol, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure I agree.
Yeah, so I'm trying to be nice, but
Yeah, okay. But it does beg an interesting question, right? Like, I think there's a bit of a blind spot in Web3 right now. We think that if it's somehow on a blockchain or if it's tokenized in some form, then it must be better than the alternatives. Actually, I think if you...
So let's back it up.
Yeah. Actually, I think if you essentially embed just a DAO based on token-weighted voting, pure token-weighted voting, you essentially have an on-chain company.
Yeah.
And God, can you imagine how terrible the development of the web would have been the first time around if there was just a company that owned the name system? You don't have any rights at all. It's actually a step backwards. And so big fan of how Ario is doing it, which is a real protocol. That gives its users rights, and you guys don't have some, magic key that gives you the ability to censor people or stop them from using the service. It's just everybody plays by the same set of open, transparent rules.
Yeah, that's it's really powerful in that regard. And you see here, right, you can lease the name for up to 5 years, or you can perma-buy it, right? So in the perma-buy case, you're going to pay more, right? Some of Arweave, when you're permanently paying for storage, you pay more upfront, but then really nobody can take that name away from you.
Right.
So, and yeah, the way what we call the demand factor, the dynamic pricing algorithm works, basically when more names are purchased, when more money accrues into the protocol balance, the price of names actually goes up. Less names purchased, the price of names goes down. So it's like the protocol tries to assume like, all right, it's cheap, therefore a lot of people are buying it, so make it more expensive, right? More demand, raise less demand. Oh, it must be too expensive. Let's lower the price until people start buying it again.
Exactly. Like you want to carefully and accurately estimate the true amount of scarcity and subsequent value of the namespace of the ecosystem, because we don't want to give away all of the names super quickly to squatters. Basically, we would prefer that the names are actually used for
used for those DeFi front ends or permanent apps or whatever. So I'm just going to register this name Mataras demo. I'm going to lease it for a year. And actually, while it's doing that, I'm just going to grab the transaction ID of the little homepage app I made. I'm going to keep that handy. And all right, registration period for 1 year. So it'll expire, next October. And we're going to put in the target ID here. So this is the file that I uploaded, or if I made an Arweave manifest of my app, it would be, the link to that manifest. This is maybe for a more advanced session, but you can actually build your own Arweave name token and input it here, right? So we're going to create a new one for me, but if you were a real power user, or if you made your own AO process that followed the Arweave name token specs for name resolution or control or what have you, you could add it in here, right?
and I think we're already pretty in the weeds, so we may as well jump in. But
jump in next. Yeah.
So one thing you could do with that is you could, for example, put some sort of community governance of a name into the system directly and have it be, again, a protocol. So maybe, I know the thing that the community stakes against most is where the address will take you to, which is really powerful and kind of crazy. You can do that with a game.
The winner of the game gets to control it, or some other token gated aspects. I mean, it's that's something we really invite people to explore, because it's pretty limitless. It's what you can do with it. So I'm just going to review the purchase, confirm. So it's going to be buying the name Mataras demo. It's creating the ant. It's deploying our updated source code on top of it. So there's kind of a bunch of stuff happening in the background here.
And you're doing the cursed activity on AO testnet, which is making a new process specifically. So you have to wait for it to show up in the gateway. The optimistic cache takes a couple of seconds.
But it's done, right?
Yeah.
So there really wasn't too long to wait.
Right.
Okay, now the real part of the demo, Sam. Let's actually do this. So I'm going to go to the Gateways app. I'm not going to load the name yet. So the name does optimistically load on any gateway, but for this demo, let's just pick a random gateway and just go put the name in and just see if it loads right away.
Let's use Tom's.
Let's use Tom. Okay.
And so this is pretty interesting. This is using some random person's computer.
Don't
know who that is.
So two things
Now
just happened.
serving your website.
Yes. So two things just happened. I went to this gateway and I doubt this gateway had ever resolved this name before, right? So what it does is it'll, we don't call it optimistic. Maybe I think we call it on demand. But basically, if it haven't ever resolved the name, it tries to go. It goes to the coup that it's associated with. It says, does this name exist? So that's why it was just rapidly able to find it. And then the second thing the gateway does, in this case, it says, oh, well, do I have this data? Right? And it didn't. I just uploaded the data. So it'll go out to other gateways on the RAO network to find that data. In this case, because I uploaded it through Turbo, it was optimistically cached on Arweave.net, which means any other gateway can immediately get that data. So now any subsequent refreshes to this page, it's getting the data locally from this gateway. It's not going anywhere else.
And any other peer could also come and grab that data and pull it around.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very neat.
Yeah. So again, it's like kind of the end-to-end, uploaded a simple page, right? Gave it a name, showed how you can access it on different gateways immediately, showed how, well, it didn't mean to do this, but you can update the name really quickly afterwards, right? So you figure if you do have an app like PermaWeb Deploy or some of the other apps that are publishing pages to Arweave now, it's really easy for them to just update things because it's just so fast.
Right.
And that's kind of cool. We're seeing actually a lot of these apps come out. Like ArDrive is just one app that does this.
Yeah, right. And I think that's something that's a very interesting trend in the ecosystem. Now you guys have launched ARNS names on, well, first it was arweave.net. For a while, it was only on the arweave.dev gateway that you could resolve ARNS names for like a year or maybe even a bit longer.
Yep.
And so everyone got used to using arweave.dev, but then arweave.net had it. And then very shortly afterwards, it was ar.io as well, which is a really short name. It sounds almost like a TLD, like you wouldn't know that's you wouldn't know that's not a top level domain like .com or, .us or whatever. And people have really seemingly taken to using ARNS natively in the ecosystem since then, which is really incredible because it means we're actually getting closer to actual PermWeb applications that guarantee user rights, like not just for the data itself, which is where things started, but then all the way down the stack, so that application is simply locationless. It exists in many, many places around the world, backed by an endowment, so you can always get back to it and interact with the application. And it offers you the right to use its service without demand for permission, essentially. Very, very cool. But so there have been a couple of these projects that are now trying to make it very easy for you to deploy web applications because, okay, now you have the ability to do so. The next step is, of course, just like you guys actually built ArDrive, making it easy to use the protocol once it was done. Now people are making it easy to upload PermWeb apps and attach names to them in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I'm curious which you're following most.
So the one that we've been actually using a lot and we really recommend for any team that does their build process through GitHub, there's, I guess you call it an app or scripts, whatever, called PermaWeb Deploy that you can add as a GitHub action.
Right.
You can set it to, update your specific process or your ant or whatever undername. You add your wallet. So like, for example, what we do is we have the owner of the ant and then we make a controller, which is not the owner, but someone who could still make some updates. So we'll add that to our GitHub action. And then apps like ArDrive, RNS, our gateway app are all automatically updated. So that's cool if you're, use GitHub for your build process.
Yeah.
I think there were a couple others. R-Link was exploring making PermaWeb app publishing really easy. And I think we're looking to maybe help them out and provide them with some, free storage credits for maybe some of their users who are trying to leverage that. There's another one that one of our community members built, called, probably won't get the name correctly. It's a German.
Yes, I believe.
Ewig. I don't know.
I know how it's spelled.
Yeah.
But that one was cool too.
Yeah. Just again, making it really easy. And I think developers are partly doing this because they want it for their own deployments. And then they're realizing that, if this is easy enough for me, let's share it with the community. And it's really starting to pick up steam.
Right, exactly. And that's something that we've been tracking as well. And we noticed, I think it was Nick from the Bazaar crew, the first build.
PermaWeb Deploy.
Is that right? Yeah. And then since then, we've seen other people start to pick it up and it's become more and more like a real thing rather than just a script we threw together to solve some problem we had. And before long, we realized actually this really needs a team to come at this as if they're building decentralized Vercel as a serious startup endeavor. Which for what it's worth, if you're a builder looking for something to do, we would definitely fund that one. It's a really obvious use of the PermaWeb. And applies not just to people that are really passionate about having a permanent web. I think also people, for example, in the DeFi ecosystem would find this immediately applicable, where they've had a bunch of problems over the years with centralized domains that get hacked, basically. And people get sent to pages that look like the normal user interface, but are actually just
hacked or just taken offline. I think.
Right.
Maybe it was a month ago. Maybe it was Namecheap or Cloudflare. One of them made an adjustment and brought off a bunch of sites.
So they did, yes.
Right. It is really interesting. I don't know if you saw. It was last week. There was an article that I saw about. So did you know the IO domain is actually a country code domain?
Yeah,
Indian Ocean.
Indian Ocean.
Indian Ocean.
I thought it was Indonesia. Okay.
Apparently it's the Indian Ocean, from what I recall. But what's happening is, I guess, the owner, the British, it's owned by, I think, Great Britain. They're selling it or transferring it or something, and it means it's going, according to this article, that entire TLD could go away, the IO domain, because it's going to be deregistered as a country code, which means it can no longer be a TLD. So, of course, this article speculates that that is going to happen, that could happen, and the hundreds of thousands of sites using that TLD could go away. So it's like, on one hand, sure, AR.io, that's a very important TLD for us, but it's also showing the exact utility of RNS.
Yeah.
You can get a domain name that exists across many TLDs.
Right.
And really, oh boy, you'd have to get deplatformed across all of them to really have that happen to you, RNS. So it's kind of, it hurts us if that would happen, but it's also really showcasing like why the system's really different and unique.
Yeah, resilient, like extreme levels of resilience is what we're going for. Yeah, you would have to be deplatformed at the TLD level, and then somehow deplatformed at the gateway level underneath that, and then across every single gateway.
Every single gateway. And similar to Arweave, right, there's a protocol incentive for gateways to keep serving and resolving those names. So if more gateways stop doing that, it kind of makes the gateways that are still resolving those names eligible to receive more reward for doing that. So it's also, neat system.
Which I think is something that maybe could be missed in the wider crypto ecosystem. Like, people are used to thinking, I use Ethereum, I use Solana, and they use the application's front end on some .com domain, and they think that what they're using is decentralized. And actually, there's just like a million layers of centralization before the one cog, which is the settlement layer, typically, of some economic game. That's decentralized, yes, true. But even just to get there, the entry points, essentially the RPC nodes, remote procedure calls, they're centralized. You have to pick one, and it's typically embedded directly into the user interface, which itself is served by a centralized server, which itself is served on a centralized domain name. Each of those layers has a single centralized point of authority and failure. People really just don't see this until it's too late.
Until it's too late,
Right? Yeah.
Until you've been deplatformed, or your identity was hacked, or your data is gone.
Right. And that identity piece also, I think, is something really interesting. Tom Wilson, the CTO of Forward, he gave what I thought was a really incredible talk at the Arweave 5th anniversary, a year and a half ago now, where he described that actually people in Web3, we talk about how keys are some kind of nuisance. And we can get that. Like, there's actually been a bunch of times where I didn't get on board with a new service because I got to the bit where it wants me to import or make a new key, and that's just,
you get the connect wallet screen. It's like,
again, I don't want to do this. I got other things to do, because you have to keep those words basically safe somewhere, and that's not like an easy task. And it puts people off. Okay, that is true, but it's also actually a privilege to be able to sign with your own keys. Like, that little thing there is actually kind of magical. It's the ability to identify yourself to other people that you are not physically present with, and with Arweave across like exceedingly long periods of time as well, with nothing but a number. And
nobody else can have.
Yeah. You're the only person with that number. You can identify yourself at distance and generate trust. It's really pretty remarkable, and you can do it without anyone, without the authority or the permission of any single other party. It's just radically different to the way the internet works.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to look at it. It's a privilege
to
be able to have that, and think it's like we got to spin it in that direction versus, it's harder and, it's riskier, but you get all these things. It's like, it's a privilege to be able to do this versus the status quo of having somebody else do it and then having somebody else have that control over your voice.
Right, your voice, exactly. I remember when I first signed an Arweave transaction with a physical hardware wallet, and I realized that like this thing I'm holding in my hands contains what is essentially my digital voice.
Yep.
Where previously, every other time I've used the internet forever, I've just been doing so with the hope that the service provider does not take away my voice. And they quite frequently do. Like, it's not theoretical. They're all across the globe. Pretty much every geography, there is some form of information that the local populace wants to talk about and is not able to freely.
Yeah.
But not here. You hold that little thing in your hand, and it is, it's yours.
Yeah.
It's real ownership.
And talking about wallets and digital identities, I think we didn't demo this today, but something that's, on the short horizon, and I know we've been talking about it, I know you guys have been exploring it with AO, is Arweave is kind of chain agnostic to a degree, right? I think, sure, to settle data on the Arweave network, you need an Arweave wallet, but we know there's ways to obfuscate that, and we have things like ANS 104 and ways where other wallet types can sign those messages and still use a bundler or leveraging AO, still settle that data on Arweave. So it's really not even just limited to one particular ecosystem wallet anymore.
Right, exactly. Any type of cryptographic key, because we've essentially generated multiple layers of signatures, right? We have RSA 4K keys at the base layer, extremely strong, resilient. I was about to say old cryptography, but that makes it sound bad. Actually, in cryptography, old and unbroken is battle tested. That's what you want. We have this very resilient, robust cryptographic infrastructure at the base layer. And then on top of that, inside these bundles, because basically each piece of data is signed individually, but bundled together into groups, which is settled in one base layer transaction with one signature attached. We can let the security parameters be much more freeform. Like the base network is not at any risk of you using some insecure key type. It's just up to you to do so. Yeah. And so we have real freedom of, I think we have pretty much every major key type implemented. You can sign with a Bitcoin key, Solana key, Ethereum key.
Which is, again, I think it's really powerful. And most, I think, ecosystems or chains, it's just not used to that. Talking with people at permissionless last week, and you'd see eyes light up like, oh, I can still use an Ethereum wallet. And this has been around for a bit, I feel like, in the ecosystem, but still a lot of people don't know that. And then AO gives you that ability as well to, use this compute platform now with Ethereum or Solana, et cetera. So it's really unique.
Yeah, it's quite cool signing an AO interaction with your Ethereum wallet. Feels pretty weird.
It's like on PermaSwap, you create a MetaMask, and we're looking at it for things like RNS and some of the RIO network stuff too.
Yeah, I think one thing that we could do there that would be nicer is not blind signing. Like there are standards for making it so that you can see what you're signing, even in MetaMask and in other ecosystems. Right. It's actually something this is the most nerdy form of alpha, I guess you can get, but something that's not been talked about yet. We're interested in this different, basically bundle generation and signature scheme system associated with signing HTTP messages themselves. There's a bunch of other stuff going on there, but that should allow us to use open formats that already exist. Going back to that question of, building such that in the future, it's widely and readily available to access the content that's being stored. And this moves in that direction. It's like open, well-used standards. And so that should open it up even further to pretty much all known key types.
Yeah. And again, I think it's really important, if we're saying keys are really important to use this new web, it's got to be as easy as possible to get and use those keys, just make another 12 words for someone who already has 50 backups of different keys. It is hard. People don't, it'll be a blocker.
Yeah.
It's a blocker for a lot of people.
I think we should make it easier for people to memorize. That would be nice. It's perfectly possible to generate a key that you are using source material that is decided by the person that creates it.
Yeah, you can provide it. You give it the entropy that you can remember.
Exactly, right. You give the entropy you can remember. Yeah, I like that. Like username and password combinations, and then it can regenerate your key using password key derivation algorithms that are like the basis of cryptography, or cryptographic security in Web 2. But the problem there, of course, is recovery. The recovery path is not nearly as clean yet.
Right. And then, what if you're deriving your key off of a really simple word, right?
Well, the user can Yeah. This gives the opportunity for the user to make bad choices. But I think we can solve that in the UI layer. Like, do you really want to use a...
Well, I'll come back to that privilege that you're talking about, right? To get this privilege, like there's these things you really need to do to be secure in that process.
And I think we can handhold the user on the way. Like that shouldn't be a problem too much. Yeah. Amazing. Cool. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of get out there in the ecosystem, Phil, while we're here chatting?
No, not. I mean, really appreciate the opportunity to give that little demo.
Of course.
I mean, it's crazy to think that you were saying before. Yeah, it's been 6-7 years, whatever. We've been talking about decentralized gateways and all this stuff for a while. Sure, we're not 100% there yet, but like, what did we just show? Like, we showed like literally going to a list of all these gateways. We showed uploading some stuff, going to a list of all these gateways, accessing it across all of them, and I feel like it's really starting to become pretty real.
Every day, a little closer. I agree.
Yep.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Phil.
Thanks for having me.
That's you.